from WQAD. This is News 8 at 9.
Right now on News 8 at 9, blame game, the impact tonight with lawmakers failing to come up with a federal funding bill. And memo madness, how members of Congress are demanding the release of a classified House intelligence memo, why they say it exposes the abuse of government surveillance. Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Lauren Simone. Topping our news tonight, marchers all over the country coming together for the Women's March. The nationwide rally comes in light of the Me Too movement, shedding light on sexual misconduct and social injustice. News 8's Yesenia Chavez shows us how hundreds came together right here at home.
Women from all walks of life are coming together.
Today, here I stand.
We're here together regardless of any differences that we have. We are here together as a whole to fight for what is right for us.
On Saturday, with signs in hand, hundreds filled Schubert Park for the Quad City Women's March.
It is important for us to show up as African American women, as women in general, as women that are leading the household in this day and time, because if we don't fight for our rights, who else will?
What it takes is getting people to the polls.
Local activists speaking on social issues such as immigration reform,
The dreamers believe in the American dream.
racial and gender inequality,
We've often been asked to be in the background while others are in the foreground.
and environmental issues.
Represent all living things.
Their reasons to march may be different.
It just hurts when I see innocent people being taken advantage of or hurt or deported or murdered for simply just being who they are.
We're marching for women's rights and basically rights for everybody.
But they all have one goal in mind:
We're here to raise awareness, get people to vote.
to get more women registered to vote so they can head to the polls in upcoming elections.
What do we want? Equality!
We won't go away. We'll continue to fight each and every year. If we have to show up in thousands of numbers, millions of numbers, we will show up. We will be there, and we will continue to fight. We won't go away.
And with power in numbers, they hope to keep marching on. In Rock Island, Yesenia Chavez, WQAD News 8.
Now, after the march, organizers say they will continue to encourage women to register to vote in our area. Now, this is what the Women's March looked like in Chicago and in other big cities across the country. Tens of thousands of marchers hitting the streets, pushing back against President Trump and his policies. Organizers tell the Chicago Tribune this year's crowd is even bigger than last year's march, which involved about 250,000 people. Now, The View co-host Whoopi Goldberg told a crowd in New York the march is about committing to social change.
What we want is for everyone to remember the only way that we are going to make a change is if we commit to change. We have to decide that the people who represent us have to represent all of us. They cannot represent some of us. They must represent all of us.
Last year's march took place the day after President Trump's inauguration. This year is being held the one-year anniversary of his swearing in. We're getting spoiled with all of this warm weather in January, but how long will this warm streak last? Storm Track 8's meteorologist Taylor Graham is in the Weather Center tonight with the first check of the forecast. Hey there, Taylor.
Hi, Lauren. Yeah, I think we are getting a little bit spoiled, especially after that brutal cold we had earlier this week. This was a nice change of pace today. We hit a high of 48 in the Quad Cities, and everybody across the board was well above average. Typically, we see temperatures in the low 30s, but today was a nice little treat and really not too bad outside at all. Now, those hometowns that are a little warmer to the south of Interstate 80 are seeing more cloud cover than those hometowns to the north of Interstate 80. So that's why they are a little bit warmer. Those clouds keep us a little bit more steady. So we're sitting at 42 right now. The cloud cover filling in, though, as we speak, and throughout the overnight hours, we'll see the cloud cover stick around. Could even see a little fog and also some drizzle here or there. Temperature-wise tonight, staying pretty steady. Now, even though tomorrow is going to be mild, we are going to be watching some rain move in. I'll tell you how much we can expect coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Taylor. A Dixon man is behind bars tonight after police found him with thousands of dollars worth of cocaine. 48-year-old Dennis Milby was stopped for a traffic violation around noon today. Officers say they found more than 37 grams of cocaine on Milby. He was then arrested and charged with 2 felonies. Milby is currently being held at the Lee County Jail. Now, an early morning traffic stop led to an Iowa lawmaker facing charges. State Representative Chip Baltimore was pulled over near Ames Friday morning. Officers say he was driving under the speed limit and swerving on the interstate. His blood alcohol content was nearly double the legal limit. He was arrested for OWI and carrying a weapon while under the influence. The Republican lawmaker represents District 47, covering much of Boone and Greene counties. Now, Iowa State Patrol is investigating an overnight crash in Muscatine, which sent a police officer to the hospital. It happened on the 2700 block of University Drive. Investigators say a Muscatine police car and a semi-truck were involved in the crash around 5 this morning. The officer was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, and the semi-driver was not hurt. Now, topping national headlines tonight, police are investigating a strange death of a teen killed by a boulder in South Carolina. The coroner says 18-year-old Jacob Bridges Aker was climbing rocks at the falls when one of the boulders broke loose and fell on him. Akers was instantly killed. The boulder weighed about 1,000 pounds.
Most likely a freak accident. You know, all the cold weather and the ice and snow, the rocks, they probably were slippery and all that.
Danger signs were posted near the area where Aker was killed. The coroner says that the cause of death was a blunt force trauma to the head. Now, lawmakers have agreed on one thing so far: to withhold a classified House Intelligence Committee memo. Now, it reportedly details government surveillance abuses by both the FBI and the Department of Justice. Now, the movement is growing on Twitter. It's called #ReleaseTheMemo. Now, Representative Steve Kings tweeted, "I have read the memo. The sickening reality has set in. I no longer hold on to hope there is an innocent explanation for the information the public has seen. I have long said it is worse than Watergate." North Carolina Representative Mark Meadows tweeted, "I viewed the classified report from House Intel relating to the FBI, FISA abuses, the infamous Russian dowser, and so-called Russian collusion. What I saw is absolutely shocking. This report needs to be released now. Americans deserve the truth." Now, lawmakers in Washington are back at work today, working on a short-term funding bill, hours after a government shutdown. Several federal services are expected to close across the nation until an agreement is reached. Now, the blame game between political parties followed the failed attempt on a funding bill. Now, the White House released a statement blaming Democrats, while Democrats leadership accused the president for rooting for the shutdown.
I'm having trouble understanding which one of these outcomes my Democratic colleagues could possibly be proud of.
All of this problem is because Republican leadership can't get to yes because President Trump refuses to.
Immigration was the point of contention for both parties. Democrats want protection for dreamers. The GOP wants a wall along the Mexican border. Now, here's a list of how federal services will be affected by the government shutdown. Medicare and Medicaid will still pay out benefits. Social Security checks will be sent out. National parks will remain open, but the trash may not be picked up there. Now, federal workers essential to national security, including TSA, military personnel, doctors, food inspectors, air traffic controllers, and Border Patrol agents will be required to show up for work, but they will not be paid. Now, Vice President Mike Pence arrived in Egypt today on the first of a 3-day trip through the Middle East. Now, Mr. Pence landed in Cairo, where he was greeted by the country's president. During the meeting, Pence talked about the importance of the relationship between Egypt and the United States.
The United States stands shoulder to shoulder with Egypt in their fight against terrorism in this country, and we will continue to collaborate with Egypt in taking the fight to terrorists across the region. We've made extraordinary progress in the fight against ISIS.
Pence will stop in Jordan and Israel before heading back to the United States. Still ahead on News 8 at 9, Winter Wonderland, how Bettendorf turned into a winter carnival for kids today, despite the warm weather.
And it is going to be too warm for snow over the next couple of days, but we do have some rain to talk about. Tell you how much rain we can expect by the end of the weekend, coming up after the break.
You're watching WQAD. This is News 8 at 9.